So, tomorrow's my birthday. And in celebration of that, I am taking the time off to just relax and catch up on a ton of shows that I have on my to watch list. And high on that list is, of course, How I Met Your Mother. Now, I finished season 1, episode 19, aptly titled Mary the Paralegal, for reasons that become crystal clear solid at the end of the episode a couple of days ago. And after watching it, I had thoughts that crystallized what has been nagging me about the characterization of Lily and Robin since I started the show, specifically with regards their interaction with the rest of the boys. I also got an idea about Lily and how she's navigating life within the story, but that is going to be tackled in next week's video because poor Marshall. But as I was saying, I have thoughts about the role that Lily and Robin serve within the gang, and I wanted to talk about that ends this video. And for those who need reminding, I am currently doing a first time watch of How I Met Your Mother, and in that regard, I'm making videos sharing my thoughts as I watch along. Maybe my guesses are right, maybe they're wrong, but I am finding it a ton of fun to make these videos. And for those of you who have been delighted with my takes so far, thank you. If you're not yet subscribed, however, do consider hitting the subscribe and like buttons. They help grow my channel and ensure that you don't miss out on any of my How I Met Your Mother content. Also, please do me the courtesy to not drop any spoilers beyond whichever episode I'm addressing at that point in the comments of the video, as I really am finding it a fascinating experience to drop my thoughts on the characters and see whether or not I am right in future episodes without any preconceived notions or bias of what to expect because of spoilers. With that said, and with my immense gratitude for your consideration, let's get on with the rest of the video. Now, like I do with these videos, we'll kick things off with a synopsis of the episode. How I Met Your Mother, Season 1, Episode 19, titled Mary the Paralegal, starts with Ted still yet again yapping about potentially finding the one. Which, is anyone surprised at this point? But anyway, we start the episode about 3 months before Ted and Victoria broke up, which of course also means before they gave long distance a spin. Back when Ted was still caught in the romance of the moment and is utterly enjoying the bliss as he informs Barney, Lily, and Marshall about how he is definitely sure that Victoria is the one. He's totally not beating my Ted Mosby is a con artist belief at this point. If you'd like to watch that video, which is the first one I made weeks ago at this point, I would leave it linked in the description bar so we can all see how I called Ted on his bullshit since like the very first couple of episodes. But anyway, back to this episode. Ted is all caught up in his belief that Victoria is the one, and when Robin joins the rest of the crew to let them know the exciting news, her piece on Pickles the singing dog has been nominated for a local award and she's inviting her friends to go. They are all hesitant until she adds that it's an open bar, at which point everybody's down, which, you know what? Valid. If you invite me to an event and tell me there's food and or alcohol, best believe I am clearing my calendar. Anyway, Ted is still riding the high of being with Victoria and tells Robin to put him down for a +1 as he is certain he and Victoria would still be together by the time her award show comes around. We fast forward 3 months and Ted is very much not with Victoria anymore. And to make matters worse, Robin is still pissed at him. He's unsure if he should go to the award show considering that 1, he doesn't have a date anymore, and 2, it's been 3 weeks since he learned that nothing good really can happen after 2 a.m. and Robin is still freezing him out. Marshall, being the only emotionally intelligent one of the lot, tells Ted that he should go regardless. Robin is his friend and going would let her know that he supports her as a friend. Barney, because he is Barney, of course, insists that Ted should go, but he should go with a date to make Robin jealous. Ted's like, bruh, this shindig is in like 2 hours. I can't find a date that fast. Come on. Barney's like, sure you can. If your date's a hooker. Ted is appalled. Marshall shuts it down with a quickness. Barney storms off only to return shortly afterwards with a stunning blonde woman named Mary. Meanwhile, up at the apartment, Robin is having her own conversation with a Lily who is exhausted because the school board has taken away a class's nap time, which meant that she hasn't been able to get her nap time in, which I will talk about this more in detail in Lily's video next week. Anyway, Robin asks Lily if it would be weird if she brought a date to the awards event. Turns out that she has taken her colleague Sandy Rivers up on his many overtures to her, and she wants to bring him on as her date. Lily is like, oh, sure thing, Ted won't mind. Newsflash, and I'm sure it comes as no surprise to anyone really, but Ted really does mind. However, he uses that as an opportunity to introduce Mary as his date because he is pissed that of all the people Robin could have brought on as her date, she chose Sandy Rivers. Also, Barney mentions to Ted and Marshall that he had already paid Mary $500 for the night for her to be Ted's date, which is a very important detail to keep in mind as we go further into this mess of an evening. At the awards banquet, Marshall and Ted are worried that everyone will find out that Mary's a hooker. Barney is entertained as hell. Lily is oblivious as she bonds with Mary and uses her lipstick to the horror of Marshall, whilst Robin questions Mary on what she does for a living, and Barney, looking panicked and guilty as hell, loudly declares that Mary is a paralegal. Mary answers questions about what her job as a paralegal entails and even mentions a law firm downtown where she works, to the surprise of Marshall, who thinks that, damn, she's really getting into the role. Ted is impressed at Mary, both with regards her responses and her quick, nerdy Star Wars repartee that also serves as a dig to Sandy Rivers, and it is clear that he's having a great time. A situation that frustrates Robin to no end, who ends up turning her flirtations with Sandy up several notches. Later that evening, Ted catches up with Robin while she's alone and tries to apologize for everything that's happened, but she's not having or buying his apology, which makes Ted even more angry as he tells her that he's trying to be there to support her as a friend, but with everything she's doing, he is done trying. This statement clearly pisses Robin off, as when it is time for the winner of the award to be announced and it is Robin's piece that wins, she goes up onto the podium and thanks all her friends at the table, but pointedly does not mention Ted. A slight that their friends all clock, and which certainly makes things very awkward. To me, it's also childish. But anyway, when she returns to the table, she grabs Sandy's hand and suggests that they get a cab and leave, something that Sandy wholeheartedly agrees with. Meanwhile, Ted and Mary have been getting their flirting on, and when Mary mentions that the hotel where the award show is being held is hella nice, as in it is in fact one of the nicer hotels she's ever been in, Ted is like, yeah, my architectural firm remodeled it. You should totally see the rooms. Barney, ever the wingman, slides a hotel room key to the two of them and tells them to knock themselves out, the room's on him. As they head up to the hotel room, Ted tests the waters by asking Mary if she's ever had sex with Barney, a question that she gives an emphatic no to, saying not for all the money in the world would she choose to do that, a declaration that seems to ease Ted of some of his concerns. Meanwhile, back downstairs, Robin returns and says that she sent Sandy home, and of course she didn't go with him, as everything she had done had been done simply to make Ted jealous, at which point I have a migraine, because what in the 8th grade bullshit is this? Robin, are you 13? The hell is this nonsense? Anyway, Marshall tells Robin that, well, Ted is now upstairs trying to make Robin jealous, and then telepathically informs Lily that Mary is a prostitute. Lily blushers out loud, shocked, and Marshall points out Barney as the culprit, saying that Barney is the one who hired Mary to be Ted's escort for the night, at which point Barney writes words on a piece of paper and calls on the MC for the banquet, Vampire Lou, to approach the table and read out the information he had written. Mary is not a hooker. She's actually a paralegal. And then he proceeds to drop the bomb that Mary has zero idea that Ted thinks she's a hooker who's been paid to be his escort for the night. And when everyone gapes at him, he laughs and is all, come on, if you don't laugh, it just seems mean. And Barney, this is low, even for you. Anyway, as they walk to the hotel room, Ted is all like, it feels like Richard Gere from Pretty Woman, a reference that flies completely over Mary's head because she is not her hooker. She thinks it's because Ted's concerned about his looks or something, and when Ted tells her that he's never really been on a date before, dates to him being code for he's never been with a prostitute, Mary thinks he's talking about like an actual date and says that she's been going on dates since she was 15, something that horrifies Ted. Ted tries to slow things down and mentions that maybe they should have a few drinks first and see what happens after that. A suggestion that Mary is delighted with, as she's had quite a day with clients riding her hard, and one of them was really anal. And that's the tipping point for Ted, who tells her that he really, really likes her and is really amazed at how much he likes her, but he cannot be with a hooker. Mary looks at him like he's lost his damn mind and tells him that she's a paralegal. Ted is like, no, you are a hooker. And angry Mary is like, no, Ted, I am a paralegal. And that's when he clicks for Ted, as he's like, you're a paralegal. We then fast forward to 3 days later. The gang's at McLaren's and Barney is cackling at how it all went down, with Marshall occasionally chuckling at the side, as Barney finally tells Ted that Mary really is a paralegal and that she lives in his apartment building. Ted, meanwhile, is upset, wondering why Barney would have ever done that. As expected, Mary was really upset and even slapped him before storming off. Barney's like, Mary's sole purpose was to serve the role, to let Ted realize that if he just got out of his own head and stopped trying so hard, he would actually be able to get with the woman he wanted, as Mary was clearly down for having sex with him on their first date. Until Ted, of course, ruined things by overthinking. Ted's like, well, I have the last laugh because I still haven't checked out of that damn hotel room and have poured expensive champagne down the drain. Barney is upset at this, at which point it is Marshall's turn to shrug and tell him that, well, if he doesn't laugh, it just seems mean. And that is where we wrap up the episode. Now, I'm sure you're wondering why on earth I'm even bringing up Lily and Robin as the subject of this video when the plot for the episode heavily focuses on the boys. Barney is the one who asks his neighbor to come with him, introduces her to Ted under the assumption that she's a hooker, when it's quite clear that she's a paralegal. And Marshall is even the one at McLaren's laughing at the end with Barney when Ted shows up. Well, you see, the reason why I bring them up is because Mary the Paralegal is an episode that to me really does encapsulate Robin and Lily's role of really doing nothing, that challenges the status quo of the behavior that the guys exhibit, as it has to do with other women that we've been introduced to so far, as long as it doesn't affect what their core roles in the story is. Lily is Marshall's fiancée and has been with him since college, which means that when Marshall and Ted moved in together, Lily has been there. And when Barney joined the party, she was also there. She's a fixture whose position within the group is never been challenged. She is the love of Marshall's life, and unless the situation directly challenges her relationship with Marshall, she has no reason to really budge. And then, of course, there is Robin. Her role is to be the one, the woman against which Ted finds himself judging all the other women that come his way and always finds them wanting in some way because they aren't her. Which therefore makes it easy for there to be some sort of revolving door when it comes to Ted, his relationships, and his search for the one, because Robin is the constant, the one that is always there, and the story comes right back around to because she's the one that Ted is in love with. And the rest of the gang, Robin and Lily inclusive, are aware of this and are always going to be in Robin's corner, especially compared to any other woman that shows up as a result of that. And so therefore, the story has both Lily and Robin, who are main fixtures in the lives of the guys, serve their roles as enablers of the boys and their idiosyncrasies, where they either object lightly to some of the hijinks or their focus is on the boys and what they want or desire, as opposed to the women who are caught in the mess. Neither of them are girls in any way. Now, This is a thought that has been bugging me since the Return of the Shirt episode, which for those who need reminding is the 4th episode of season 1, where we are introduced to the character of Natalie, Ted's ex, who he broke up with on her birthday 3 years prior, only to decide to bug the poor woman yet again when he's on a kick of trying out old things he thought he didn't like previously but had now come around to liking again, e.g. an old shirt, bourbon, you get the gist. Anyway, after upending her life 3 years prior, Ted shows up like the con artist he is, convinced that Natalie might possibly be the one. Spoiler alert, she isn't. And when he decides yet again that he isn't really feeling it, that emotion that he can't really adequately describe but he knows is ineffable, he tells his friends that he intends to break up with Natalie again. And this was the episode that had me start eyeing Lily very suspiciously, because before Ted showed up like the emotional terrorist he is and tried reconnecting with Natalie again, when tells Lily how he broke up with Natalie the first time, Lily is furious at him and how he seems utterly unaware of how he's most likely broken Natalie's heart. She's Team Natalie as she tries and fails to even get Marshall to see just how horrible Ted's actions were 3 years prior, even calling Marshall whilst he's there in the same room to tell him that they aren't having sex for the next month, to try and drive home the point that breaking up with your girlfriend on her birthday via her answering machine is a big no-no. And the reason why I bring this up is that when Ted once again meets with the gang at McLaren's to let them know that after reconnecting with Natalie again, is back to not really feeling it with her and intends to break up with her, Lily's response after hitting him a couple of times, wondering why he didn't just leave Natalie alone, is to then sit with him and brainstorm on how best to break up with her. There was no pointing out how Ted's endless search for the one has meant that he's left a ton of broken hearts in his wake, how it makes no sense that everything boils down to an ineffable feeling, and that is that. She shrugs and proceeds to advise him on the best way to break up with Natalie, who, I repeat, he had only reconnected with 3 weeks prior. After the disaster that was Ted breaking up with her 3 years before then, on her birthday. And did I mention that this second breakup happens yet again on, you guessed it, her birthday? Gods, Ted Mosby is a scourge. And then there's season 1 episode 14 titled Zip Zip Zip, where because of Ted spending all his time with his still new relationship with Victoria, Barney and Robin become an unlikely duo of friends, with Barney adopting Robin as his wingman for the night. An event that culminates in Robin basically psychoanalyzing a cute girl at the bar into going home with Barney for the night. A situation that would definitely have happened had Barney not decided to leave McLaren's and Robin followed after him. In that situation, we could see that what that girl wanted and what was in her best interest didn't matter as much to Robin as what Barney wanted, and what Barney wanted in that scene was to get laid. A desire that Robin was willing to help him with, which then cemented her relationship with Barney as being his best buddy, one who comes very close to Ted's position in his life. And don't get me started on how things played out with Victoria, where Robin's being all snide because she's jealous, and of course Lily whilst trying to get Robin to drop the attitude. And let's not forget that she's still more protective of Robin's feelings and her potentially getting hurt when Ted is all about to cheat on Victoria with Robin before he had broken up with Victoria. How I Met Your Mother as a show is one that very clearly doesn't think that any other woman that isn't Robin or Lily matters, and the flow of the episodes clearly show this. But what is worse for me is that the casual disregard that Barney, Ted, and occasionally Marshall show to the women that the guys interact with in the course of the show is something that is never really challenged by either Robin or Lily. We can say that maybe the boys didn't take note of it, but what about them? There is no calling the boys out on their behavior, no attempt to actually take the time to highlight how fucked up some of their decisions are. Mary is Barney's neighbor, for Christ's sake, and is just there to do him a favor. And yet, Lily has more of a voiced objection when she's working under the mistaken belief that Mary is a hooker, and she accidentally used her lipstick than she does when it is revealed that Mary isn't a hooker but is actually instead a paralegal. The focus is on the fact that Ted doesn't know that Mary isn't actually a hooker, rather than the potential humiliation that Mary would face when she realizes that the guy she thinks is cute and wants to spend the night with thinks she's doing so because his friend paid her to do so. And I don't know, the stunned silence when Barney breaks the news doesn't really cut it for me as much, because it just confirms that the stance of the show is that these women exist to serve as the butt of the joke and to move the story forward. And unless they belong to the core group of Marshall, Ted, Barney, Lily, and Robin, then their hurt and pain or story doesn't really matter as much. And that just, it grates on my nerves. But maybe that is just me. Maybe you have a separate take or opinion on that. Please drop them in the comments. I would, as always, love to hear your thoughts on things. Like this video if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet. Share this if you want. Support me on Patreon if you can. If you can't, however, you can consider checking out my other channels and subscribing to me on those ones if any of them is more your speed. I have a gaming channel for those who are interested in gameplay videos, and an ASMR channel for those who find my voice soothing and are interested in myth and folk tales. The links to my channels are in the description bar if you would like to check them out. Whichever the case may be, however, I will see you tomorrow with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.